Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for putting up with me on Skype. The benefits of technology, in this case, are really productive. Couple of things. One, I was expecting your president to tease me more than he did, so I'm not sure where to go with that, Harold. I'll save the teasing, I guess, for when I get to see you in person. Two, I'm really sad that I'm not there. One of the highlights for me always is spending time with firefighters, and I will tell you why. It isn't just because of that very warm and productive introduction. It's because we've built a coalition in our state, a coalition that I know you utilize on a national basis, and that coalition leads to real results, and these are lasting results from making sure that we're safe during our work and career, making sure that our retirement benefits and family supports are protected and available to us for the long haul, looking at ways to enhance emergency communication, making sure that collective bargaining is enhanced and protected statewide. And we set that agenda in 2010. And unfortunately, too much of that agenda required a governor. And in 1 year, because we've been working together, we've delivered on every single one of those issues. And I will tell you, people said we could not lift a $7 billion unfunded liability from our pension system. And we did it because firefighters showed up for a year and identified the strategies and the legislative vehicles to make that a reality. And it's nothing short of incredible. And I'll tell you what it's done all by itself, because so many other working members, some not even union members, public employees, who were seeing states discuss, including ours, mechanisms to whittle away their benefits, to look at maybe going to defined contributions, having discussions about health care that are going in the wrong direction. Because firefighters stood tall, and I'm 4'10", so I'm always impressed by that, stood tall. Every other public employee stayed the course. So they're engaged in everything from retirement protections, reforming our pension system, one of the only states in the country to get that done, and to get that done in a first term, first year of a brand new governor. But it's led the foundation to create a situation in our state where right to work can never occur. It's created a situation where we're investing in salary increases, specific retirement shifts for first responders, additional training, brand new reorganization of labor boards that really look at county and volunteer firefighters statewide, enhancing our emergency communications and training. In the largest city in our state, we could not get an interoperable communication system between the county first responders and the city first responders. And when I was in Congress, because they couldn't work together, then I wasn't eligible to bring home a federal grant for that communications. Well, this coalition, and quite frankly, Mr. President, you're right, the work of Diego Arincon, making people sit at the table, get to know their first responders in their community, be clear about what they can get done, and that what our expectations are for making sure that each legislative session has a first responders priority list, right? That we've got an agenda that's meaningful. We've won on every single issue every single time, and including putting PTSD into our presumptive causation workers' comp protection legislation. Thank you. And now we're going to do that for all first responders and make sure that we're not leaving our brothers and sisters in blue behind, because this kind of organization, frankly, doesn't exist in the same way for police officers. And we're taking the same models that you're working on nationally, And the models that are, and I know we've got at least a handful. I saw Robert Sanchez in the audience there a minute ago. We're taking that same model in New Mexico, and when working on making sure that every first responder, now for the COVID-19, your leadership is finding its way into our response and training for home health care workers and police officers and tribal officers, and making sure that all of our emergency managers in every single community and context are following the leadership of their firefighters and the IAFF. So for me, this has been a source of incredible pride because, Harold, you're right. Mr. President, we set a really aggressive agenda, but it wasn't a political agenda. And for you, every day that you respond to a call, every baby whose mother is panicked in the same way that I was, every time you make a difference in someone's life, that's lasting. And it's too easy for us to forget to tell those stories and to live by the example that you set every day. So 3 things I want to leave you with. I surround myself with people who don't forget those stories and remind me to keep telling them. 2, we've built a nonpartisan coalition. We're clear that what we're trying to do is make a difference. We don't get mired in the politics once we've elected our candidates. And all of the IAFF candidates, we're working together at every statewide office, every legislative office, every county office, so that we're clear that we're making the investments and the differences that make all the difference in your ability to respond to families just like mine. I think about that terrible moment that Harold talked to you about all the time. And I was alone in the house. And actually, I was alone in the house with a 2-year-old was the child that was doing all right. It was my infant, Erin, who stopped breathing. And I tried to get her breathing by myself, and I couldn't do it. I called 911, and I didn't understand how firefighters and first responders work. I expected that a paramedic driver, who I didn't know was going to be a firefighter, would show up momentarily. Although it was probably a minute, it was, a couple of minutes, it felt like it was such a quick response. Quite frankly, it felt like seconds to me. And I know most people who are in a trauma will tell you quite the opposite, that it feels like an hour goes by, but that's not what happened. I was on the phone, cradling my limp infant, and the next thing I know, a firefighter paramedic was at my door. And I can't even really explain productively that I knew that if I just handed that baby to the firefighter and let him hold my limp baby in his arms, in a matter of seconds, she was going to be okay. And that's exactly what happened. She was okay. And my poor husband showed up with all the fire trucks and ambulances outside. But I think he had real confidence that if they were at our house, those vehicles were still there, that everybody inside the house was safe. And in fact, that was true. And those lasting impressions, there's not a single family in a single community who hasn't had the benefit of somebody responding to an emergency. And while we all wish those emergencies didn't occur, they do. Several years later, I lost my husband to a brain aneurysm. He was an organ donor. And about 6 months after I lost him, I received one of the most valuable and important letters of my whole life. And it made a difference in my daughter's healing. A firefighter in a small community in western New Mexico, Grants, New Mexico, father of 4 children, was the recipient of my husband's heart. And I can't tell you, but I feel as if those life experiences connected me to this organization in ways that maybe most people don't get connected. 1 incident maybe, but 2. And my whole career has been lifted, has been successful because of the men and women in that conference today, Mr. President, and by all the men and women who are first responders in my state. And this is a state that's going to get public worker protections, not just right in the context of the legislation we've already talked about, but we're going to get it right. And we're going to lead the country every single legislative session. And we're doing that because we have this kind of partnership. So while I regret more than I can adequately explain how sad I am not to be there today, I'm doing what you would expect me to do. I'm surrounded by men and women who are continuing to prepare, who are making sure families feel safe. They're clear that we know what to do in an emergency, that we're testing and surveilling, and we're also protecting our health workers and our first responders adequately. Because that's what you would do. You would stay put. You would be really clear that your obligation is to those families in that way. And so I'm very grateful to each and every one of you. And the last thing I want you to know is that I'm expecting great things from you today, because we need not just a state by state agenda, we need a national agenda that is clear about first responders and the protections and quality workplace investments that we need to make. You will always have my support. I am very grateful to you, and I'm so honored that you had me today at your conference. Mr. President, it's an honor to work with you side by side, and there's not a single moment, certainly of my career, that I don't reflect back and think about your leadership and the impact that you've made on my own career here in my own beautiful state of New Mexico. Thank you, sir. I'm very grateful.
Governor, thank you so much.